All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is David Tulkin. I am the Director of Business Development here at Shop-Ware. Very pleased to be with you today. Hope everyone's recovering from a wonderful weekend, hopefully getting a little bit of rest and relaxation. I know these Tuesdays that feel like Mondays, but don't feel like Mondays are difficult for me to get started again. So glad to have everybody here. We've got a great topic today. I'm very excited to have Chris Cotton here with us from AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. But before we get started, just a couple housekeeping issues. If you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. And as always, we encourage your participation. If you would like to be unmuted, I will send you a Shop-Ware hat in the mail, like the awesome one that I have on right now. We would love to hear your questions and comments. You can put them into the chat, but of course, if you want to hop into the conversation with us, that is always great. We will record today's session and it will be up on our YouTube channel by the end of the week, hopefully. So again, let's get some active participation going today, get everybody to wake up a little bit. Today's topic is 4 steps for auto shop success. And with us, we have, like I said, Chris Cotton he's the president of AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. When I was talking with Chris about a topic for a webinar, I assume all of you have been on lots of webinars this past 18 months or this past year. And a lot of it is becoming very repetitive and very monotonous and not that engaging. And I told Chris I'd much rather have him do something that was a mile deep than a mile wide. So hopefully we're going to dig into some topics here that aren't things you've heard before, aren't things that are just popping up everywhere, that are giving you a little bit of variety. So like I said, Chris is the president of AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. He's a subject matter expert in all things relating to management and auto repair. He's got over 28 years of experience in the automotive industry, as well as 42 years in the customer service industry, which I guess puts him at 70 years old. Oh, I guess some of those probably overlapped. Okay, got it. He's got over 18,000 hours coaching auto repair shops, just like everyone that's on here today. And he's really passionate and excited about having shop owners that are just like you. He understands the struggles. He understands where you want to be. He understands the challenges that are faced. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to him because he's got much better things to say this morning than I do. So without further ado, Chris, I'm going to let you take it away. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll give you control.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Thanks, David. Yeah, the big thing, guys, is I work off of interaction. So the more interaction, the better. I would much rather be in front of a classroom teaching a class than on here doing the webinar. And at this point, I'm ready to get back out there and get in the arena and start the fight with you guys shoulder to shoulder for sure. So, but I do appreciate you joining us here, and I appreciate Shop-Ware and David for letting me do this. The topics I'm going to have several topics. We're going to talk about them. We're going to go through them. These are things that I actively work on with my clients, and hopefully for you guys, it's something new. There's something in there. I want this to spark a discussion and us move forward from there. The first thing I'm going to talk about here in a minute is the auto shop profits and cash flow that I do with my clients. If I'm working on that, that's like a 1-day 8-hour class. So obviously we're not going to be able to talk about all that here. I'm going to jump back a minute and talk about that 40 plus years customer service experience. My granny had a bar and a restaurant growing up. So I started washing dishes when I was 5, standing on a pickle bucket. So my job was bussing tables, clearing tables, washing the dishes, and making sure that the quarters were in the jukebox playing Glenn Campbell, if any of you guys know who that is. So enough about that. I'm going to get going here. So let me share my screen. Excuse me, a little cough. So these are the things we're going to talk about. The 4 must-dos and 2 things to put on your radar. David, if nobody stops me, if there's an issue, I'll just keep talking and going because I won't know any different. So
I'll hop in and regulate.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will jump in as I see things come in. No worries.
Okay. Awesome.
I just take myself off because it gets a little distracting to see me sitting there and not talking. So
no, you're fine. So as long as everybody can see my screen, we'll keep going. So here I'm going to give you 4 must-dos and 2 things to put on your radar. And these 2 things to put on your radar are things that I'm seeing in shops right now. Plus, if we have time, I'll get into like one hot button topic that's just kind of popped up in the last day or so. So the biggest impact I've had on my clients in the last 18 months to 2 years is the auto shop profits and cash flow that we do. A lot of you guys have a process and a procedure for a lot of the things you do, but we don't have a process and procedure for moving cash through the business, holding on to cash, and things like that. One of the biggest things that ever happened to me was when I first bought my shop, I wasn't setting any real money aside. I showed that I had a profit on the income statement, but there was really no money there. I went in, turned my taxes in, and the accountant's like, "Hey, I need a check for $18,000. I'm like, "Wait, what? $18,000? What the heck?" I show that I made money, but I don't have any money. So I didn't have $18,000 just to write the IRS a check. So one of the things that I got into early on was I've always been a salesman and a natural person to take care of people. And I thought the more sales I had, the more money I was going to have. But if you're doing $1 million in business and you're not making any money, then you can do 2 million and still not make any money. So I always thought growing the profits will come, but that was like way wrong. I had it wrong. And if you have nothing and grow it, you'll still have nothing, right? And I read number 2, most shop owners have a hobby living paycheck to paycheck. 83% of small businesses are in survival mode. This holds true in the auto repair industry. When I first saw that number, I didn't believe it. But one of the things I do when I get a new client, when I'm doing the client download or the debrief, I ask them, I said, "Do you have checks in your top drawer that have gone uncashed, or do you not write your checks?" And so I kept a good record of that. And I went back and looked, and sure enough, about 75 to 85% of all the people that came to me asking for help were living paycheck to paycheck, basically. So I'm telling you, as a shop owner, it's okay to make a profit. There's nothing wrong with it. So if you're in that situation, stop. One of the things our employees don't understand is that everyone else gets paid before the owner does. Everybody thinks we're all millionaires, but that's just not true, right? And whatever it is, all that sucks. It's time to stop the madness. And the reason why I do what I do is to stop entrepreneurial poverty for shop owners, right? I don't ever want a shop owner. You stuck your neck out on the line. You're out there fighting the fight. You shouldn't ever be wondering how you're going to get the bills paid or how you're going to send the kids to college or anything else, right? So this takes us back to number 3. You have to have a process for how your money flows through your business and works for you. The process I'm going to show you comes from everything I know about the automotive industry. It comes from the book Profit First. It also comes from what I've learned from Dave Ramsey. I'm a big Robert Kiyosaki fan as well, but that book comes in a little bit, but not much. So this is everything that I've learned and kind of everything that I wished I would have done in my business when I had it. I sold my business about 10 years ago, and I didn't follow this process. I eventually got to something similar, but I didn't follow this process, and I wish I would have. So like number 4, stop making profit a leftover. It's okay to pay yourself first. It's not a sin to make and keep a profit in your business. It is, after all, your business, right? So like I said earlier, if you came to one of my classes on a Saturday or Friday or during the week, this whole process is like a full 8-hour process, 8-hour class. So I'm going to skip some steps in there. Number 5, I'm going to assume that you have a parts matrix in place along with a labor matrix and a labor grid, as well as all of your other profit centers lined out, and you're getting at least a 65% or better gross profit. If you're not getting that, this will be kind of a diagnostic tool to figure out where this is. Typically, all we do is just throw all of our money in one pile and then pull it out whenever we can, or whenever that person's squealing the most, that vendor. One of the first things we do in business that we shouldn't is we commingle our funds. Your business is your business and your personal life is your personal life. You need to pay yourself a salary and learn how to budget both in your personal life and your business. If you can't pay yourself a check every week or every other week, your business has issues, right? It's not just a phase. It's not anything else. It has issues. It's fundamentally broke. Also, I come across a lot of shops that don't have an income statement in their PRL, or it takes them weeks to get it. If you're waiting 3 weeks, 4 weeks from your accountant to get an income statement to see how you did, that's way too long. If there are things in your business that need to be fixed, we need to get on them right now. So I'm telling you, if you're more than 48 hours from having a complete income statement, you're in trouble. We got to fix that. And if your accountant's not willing to get on board with that or this, if you can't change the man, you change the man, right? So it's time to get a new accountant. So I'm going to hop in. I hope there's a lot of questions on this. And again, I want to give you my email real quick. My email is chris@autofixsos.com. So it's chris@AUTOFIXSOS.com. As you have questions in here, shoot me email. I'm also going to give you my other personal information at the end. But for now, if something comes up and you want me to follow up later personally, I'm more than happy to do that.
I'll put it in the chat right now for you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So as profits come in, we have to have a process or procedure on what we do with profits and how the cash flows through the business. So first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to hear this and you're going to be like, oh, I don't understand it. This is the hardest part, is getting the bank account set up. Once you get the bank account set up, it's all downhill and easy sliding from here. I've done over 100 of these implementations at this point with auto repair shops and other businesses, but the hardest part's always getting the bank accounts open. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to set up several bank accounts. We're going to have an income account, a sales tax account, because remember, sales tax doesn't belong to us. And typically when I see audits and things in the business, it's always for sales tax. It's not the IRS. IRS is overworked, underpaid. They're not coming to do an audit for you typically, unless you really screw something up. It's going to be your local city and state governments that come shut you down for sales tax. So we're going to do income, sales tax, IRS, debt, profit account, OPEX or operating expense, parts and labor account. Eventually, we'll also set up some holding accounts, profit hold, debt hold, and some things like that. I'll show you guys here in a minute what that looks like. So this is what the two bank system is going to look like. In bank one, we're going to have the tax, debt, profit, operating expense, parts, and payroll, and income. For some reason, my income didn't show up on there. And then bank two, we're going to have sales tax, tax hold, and profit hold. Now, I'm not a super stickler for this. If you are adult enough to say, hey, I can handle all this in one bank, then I believe you, and then we're going to be okay. The reason why we do two banks is the second bank is out of sight, out of mind. So if we take our sales tax and put it in bank two and we don't ever get into that account, then we're not going to be tempted with that money. And then hopefully this is how this cash flow moves through the business. So I'm just going to kind of roll through it here with you. So your customer pays the invoice and that money comes into the income account. I tell my clients to do this once a week on Mondays or something like that. A lot of my clients do it every day, and that's fine. Once you get the bank account set up and you're moving through it, it should be fairly easy to do. And it takes minutes a day once you get everything lined out and figure this out. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to look at your business summary and see how much you collected in sales tax that week, and all that money goes into the sales tax. The money for the sales tax. So say we did $25,000 and for some reason our sales tax was $5,000. So you're automatically going to take $5,000 out of that and put it in the sales tax account. After that, you have $20,000 to allocate. So that $20,000 is going to pop over here to the allocations, and then it's going to trickle into these other accounts. You got payroll, and these numbers are all starting numbers. What I've done here is I've taken an average of all the shops that I've done work with, and this is about where they've started at. Payroll is 30%, and payroll includes everybody on payroll. If you're on the payroll, your children are on payroll, and everybody's on payroll, all that goes in there. And that includes the tax and benefit load as well. And I'm sure there will be some questions on that, but I can ask them later and go on. parts account, typically your parts cost is about 23%, hopefully less, because we're going to work on the, just remember too, we're going to work on decreasing payroll parts operating expense, and eventually we're going to pay off our debt and increase this profit. Okay. Operating expense about 40%, profit to start usually in the 1 to 2% range depending on what we're doing, debt 2%, and then tax. This tax here is IRS tax, because we're gonna set aside a little bit of money every week, every month, whenever we make those allocations, so that we can pay the tax man at the end of the year. It's in the account ready to go. So I'm going to pop down here at the bottom real quick and talk about this. So the other thing, what we do is typically the way I paid my bills is I looked at my checkbook and I was like, okay, I got $40,000 in the account, and I've got a stack of a stack of invoices like 12 inches tall. And so I just did the math and shuffled them around and paid it until they were all gone. And I did this like every day, whatever, as money came in. I want you to have a process on how you pay your vendors. If you think about some of the people that you do business with, they require you, or they pay you 45 days. If you have some accounts receivable, they may pay 60 days. But I want you to think about when we pay our bills too. I want you to set everything up so you pay your bills on the 10th and the 25th of the month. So that way you're controlling your cash flow in and you're controlling your cash flow out. Okay. So at the end of the quarter, the money is going to come from this account, and we're going to move it to our tax hold account and our profit hold account. Okay. And so say we were able to put $10,000 in each of these accounts. What we're going to do at the end of every quarter is we're going to take out we have 10,000 in the profit hold. We're going to take $5,000 out as a disbursement, as a draw, as a whatever, depending on how your accountant wants you to receive that. Okay. So we're going to make these disbursements. This tax side of it, we're going to kind of leave that money in there, and depending on how we're looking for our taxes, if your accountant wants you to pay quarterly, you've got money to pay it quarterly. If they're like, hey, I looked at your income statement, we're doing really good, you can keep some of that money. So what's going to happen is every quarter we're going to disperse half, and then we're going to keep the other half in this account. And then at the end of the year, once your taxes are paid, whatever's left in your profit hold account and your tax hold account, you can take a disbursement on. But we keep it until the end of the year for that. So I'm gonna hop back here for just a minute and say, if your business doesn't have any debt and you don't have anything to pay, I've got a shop owner that debt is his airplane account. He's always wanted to buy his own airplane, and so that's his airplane account. And so that's where we put the money. I've got other people that don't have that. They just put everything into profit. And I've got some people that have started with me less than 2 years ago. I do full coaching with them, so not just this, but they went from always struggling to pay sales tax, always struggling to pay payroll, to now their full-on profit account is about 23%. So that's what they're putting in every time they make allocations. And then again, at the end of the year, we're going to do the final tax and the final profit. I'm going to show you this allocation worksheet real quick. It's just a simple spreadsheet. We're just putting money in here, and it's going into the account. So this is just a demo. Right? So if our income for the week is $25,000 after we've taken the sales tax out, this is what your allocations are for the week. I mean, it's really, really simple. Your labor and payroll, this money goes into that account. Parts goes into that account. Operating expenses goes into there. Income tax, IRS, debt, and profit. Now, you've also noticed I got the target in here. What are we trying to cut this to? What are we trying to get down to, and how are we trying to move that? It's just a really quick tool. You move it in here. So here's the diagnostic part of this process, right? So you may get in, and payroll for a shop in Oklahoma is not going to be the same as payroll for a shop in Seattle, Washington. So this labor and payroll number may be as high as 40%, maybe 33, 34. But if we're doing that, then 100 is all you get to play with. There's no amount more than 100. So you have to have the 100. You can't increase this to 40 and leave it. That gives you 110 down here. So it has to come from somewhere else, or we have to increase sales to get there. The other thing is parts. I've had some people that, because of volume and everything, they've been able to get their parts cost down to 15%, which is awesome. And then the other. So the other thing is I want you to understand is this is not rigid. This has to be done on a shop by shop basis, and you have to work it that way. You can't I can't say that this is going to work for every shop, but this is, the numbers I'm sharing are kind of like the averages, right? So again, if we're consistently putting 25% in here and we're always short, then maybe we find that our parts cost is 30%. Why is it 30%? Is our matrix not set up properly? Are we not getting the cores returned? Is somebody in your shop stealing from you? There could be several reasons why this is wrong and why it needs to be fixed. So again, that's the diagnostic side of it. Down here on the labor and payroll, same thing. Do we have things that have bled into it and we're paying more for benefits than we should? Operating expenses, your insurance goes into there. Are you checking that every year? The other thing I want you to do is I want you to stop using the account you're using now that everything flows into, and I want you to shut that account off, stop putting money in it, zero it out, and tell the banker that you don't want anything else coming out of that account. The main reason I want that done is I don't want any automatic draws or debits out of the account. I want somebody to call you and be like, Chris, my bill's not getting auto paid. What's up? And then at that point in time, I look at that bill and I go, is this something I need to keep or want to keep? Because every time I do an implementation like this, we're usually able to cut about 5 to 7% on stuff that's just recurring charges that just bleeds in there, and we're just paying it because honestly, we're too busy / too lazy to go through and not do it anymore. Okay. So, I know that was quick. I know it was a lot for you guys to digest, but if I was able to give you one thing to have the greatest impact on your business, that would be it. David, did you have any questions about that before I move on?
No, I don't right now. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. And I know I'm trying to go through as fast as
You're doing great on time.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Awesome. So if you were my client, and I don't know how many people we've got on here right now, one of the first things that I would tell you that we need to track is our average estimate. Average estimate feeds into so many other things. It's not even funny. I've tracked it for several years, and mainly it was because when I had my shop, we were running, 100 cars a week, $25,000 a week in sales. And the coach that I had, I'm like, I need more cars. And he's like, Chris, your average repair order sucks. We need to track and measure some things and figure this out. And he's like, how much service are you guys writing? What are you doing with it? What's your closing ratio? I'm like, I don't know. And so we tracked it and measured it. And what I found out was on 100 cars a week, we were doing 25 grand in sales, which is great, but we had another $47,000 that we were estimating that wasn't getting sold. And so, I know car count's not as big a deal as it used to be, but for some of you it is. You're in a general repair shop, your average repair order should be 6 times your labor rate. In a diesel shop, Euro shop, it should be 9 times your labor rate. So if you're not getting any of those types of numbers, the first thing I would look at is what's the average estimate? Where are we at? Where are we failing? So if you have a goal of 689 on an average repair order and your average estimate's only $500, then guess what? You're not going to get there. I don't care how hard you try, what you do, you cannot magic $189 on a ticket. So how do we get that number and what do we do? So, you must have a point of sale system that shows you that number. If you don't, then the only way to track it's manually. And the way I did it is I went through every invoice every week. Eventually, I was able to create an Excel spreadsheet that I could put that numbers in, and it's huge. It's a huge document, and if you just look at it, it's pretty overwhelming, because then we're tracking case services and other things like that. But this is something that you should look at and you should be tracking every week. What's my average estimate? So the other thing that goes along with the average estimate is your closing ratio. So are you tracking what your closing ratio is? Do you look at it every week? Is it something that you're thinking about? And is it something that you're working on to actively improve? So I can't believe I put this in here, fun with numbers. Let's do some math, because I can do math on a $1 million business, but algebra 2 is about to kill me. We're finally getting our daughter out of high school, but algebra 2, like, we've been having running gun battles forever in the family over algebra 2. So if your average estimate's 689 and your average repair order goal is 689 and your closing ratio is 100%, then that's awesome. You can quit. You can take a break for like 5 minutes. The world's your oyster. Everything's good, right? But if you track your average estimate and it's $1,000 and your closing ratio is 50%, then your average repair order should be around $500. But okay, we're still not quite there yet. So what do we need to find out? Or that's why we need to find out what your closing ratio is before we come up with our average estimate goal. So if our goal average repair order is 689 and our closing ratio is 45%, then your AEG should be 1531.11. And so that's how your closing ratio affects your average estimate goal. So as the closing ratio increases, the AEG comes down, right? So having said all that, I don't want anybody to think that I ever dig for dollars, because I don't. I don't ever dig for dollars. The car tells a story. We're the interpreter. We listen to the language the car is speaking in, and we tell that to the customer and then go back and forth. So I don't ever want you to think that I'm suggesting that you pad an estimate in order to get that number. The way we get there is we do a great DVI. We check maintenance records versus needed, neglected maintenance. We also use our expertise as an auto shop owner and a business in our best recommendation, or in our professional opinion, this is what you need. Okay, we are the interpreter for the car. If we use our tools, then the estimates should be where they need to be. No issues. So there is kind of a common theme here, but one of the ways that we do, and I'm moving on, David, this is another topic. So again, if you need to stop me. So one thing that I want you to do is I want you to record, listen, and coach to the phone calls that you're getting. One of the biggest mess ups we have is we spend all this money on marketing and making the phone ring, and about 75% of the time your service advisor doesn't get the appointment. And I'm just grading that on a pass fail of either them, yes, they're getting the appointment, or no, they're not getting the appointment. So as an owner, you have to have enough free time, quote unquote, that you can make an appointment with yourself. And I want you to sit down and audit the phone calls weekly, or have an outside company do it for you. There are several companies out there that record phone calls. I do some recorded phone call research and then coaching a service advisor. So it can be done if you don't have time or if you don't want to do it.
Is anybody doing this right now? I'm just kind of curious if you want to put into the chat field, if you are doing this, want to do this, never done this, anything to share from it. Because I think this is a great thing. I mean, I do this in my job right now with my sales team, listening to their phone calls and hearing if they're getting appointments and seeing how many times they're not getting appointments and how many people are showing up for their appointments and all those sorts of things. So is anybody currently active in call tracking or listening to call recording or use a third party? Benny says never.
And so here's the thing, guys. If you guys are writing an extra $40,000 a week in estimates and think you need more cars, you don't. You need to do some phone training with your people. You need to get out there, listen to phone calls, incoming and outgoing, so you can hear both sides of it. Because there's going to be some appointment setting issues, and there's going to be some sales issues as well. So it sounds like most people are not doing that, right, David?
No, not doing it.
Okay, awesome. So this may be, if nothing else, this may be it for you guys. Hopefully so. So if you're doing it yourself, you need to do both incoming phone calls and outgoing phone calls. Just get a paper, make notes. What did your employee do right? What did they do wrong? And there are things, once you hear this, you'll be like, oh, there's 15 things on this call that we could have done differently to maybe swing the tide. Because remember, your potential clients or customers, they're throwing up roadblocks, right? They're giving you reasons why they can't do business with you, and we need to turn those around. We're just like knocking those roadblocks down. So did your service advisor mention the good things about the vehicle and build value? A lot of times what I hear is like, oh, hey, yeah, we did the inspection, we sent it to you, it's all red. And the tone is, I can't believe you're still driving this car. I don't believe that you're going to buy any of this ticket, but my owner said to present it to you anyway. And because I can't afford it in my wallet, I don't think you can afford it either. So, you know, they get the Eeyore tone and they go through and they're like, you don't want to do that, do you? So start out by telling the great things about the car. Hey, we did a 42-point inspection and your car was yellow or better or green and better in 50% of them. We just have these things that need to be worked on. Does the service advisor provide insight and present themselves as an expert in the field? If you have people you're working at the counter, now I know we have some new people, but if you've got people at the counter that can't give an expert opinion on something, they're probably in the wrong spot. Did we offer financing options? Did we send pictures in or videos beforehand? I don't ever want to get to the point. It's handy, it's great if we can do a digital inspection, send it to the customer, they approve it all and send it back. But I've got several people that what they do is they call the customer and they're like, hey, I'm almost done with your quote here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to you here in just a second. I want you to look at it, and then I'm going to call you in 5 minutes so we can go over it. But if you do have a client that just selects it and wants to go on, then that's fine. You should know enough about your clients to know what kind of personalities they are and how they like to be contacted and things like that. It's so much easier to sell things if we've sent pictures and videos beforehand. So this, I didn't include this in here, but this is another thing that we talk about. Do you have a process for your DVIs? Do you require your people to talk about the good? Do you require your people to make sure that you have 8 to 10 pictures and make sure 3 to 5 of them are on things that are great? And if you don't, then you need to do that. So when you're in your coaching session and you're talking to your service advisor, have them listen to the phone call first, ask them what they heard and what they would have done differently. Because most of the time, once they hear it, they're like, oh man, I should have done this, or I've been thinking about this ever since that phone call and I wished I would have done this. And then we just have to make sure that they're starting to work those things into the conversation. And so I want you to go over your notes with the employees and tell them what you would have done differently. Not that you're better than them, but you're like, oh, hey, if I would have taken that phone call, here's what I would have done differently. But we also want to make sure that our service advisors are empowered to make a decision and stick with it. What we don't want to create are people that can't make a decision because of outdated policies and procedures. And by that, I had a situation where a client, the owners were gone on vacation, the other service advisor was gone, and somebody came in for a refund because they overcharged them by like $180, and the customer found it and came back. So we're all already starting out on a sketchy issue anyway. And so rather than stop and say, hey, I'm so sorry about that, let me take care of it, you're right now, the person at the counter was like, oh, hey, we're going to have to cut you a check, the owner's out of town, so it's going to be a week before they get back, and everything else like that, when that person knew darn well how to swipe a card and do a refund. They just didn't want to inconvenience themselves for 3 minutes. But what happened in this case was the owners was out of town for another week, came back, and the service advisor never relayed the message. So a month later, this lady calls up and she's like, you said you were going to send a check, you didn't send a check. And unfortunately, we lost a customer over like $180 because basically laziness and lack of communication, right? So at the end of the conversation, let your service advisor know that you're going to be auditing phone calls on a weekly basis from here on out. but also you have to hold yourself accountable to doing it every week. If you stop doing it and you said you were going to do it, it's like everything else that you said you're going to do in your shop and you never followed through on. And so then it becomes easy for them to say to themselves, oh, here we go again with something that you said was important but really wasn't. So tell them that you expect to see improvements week after week, especially in regard to the areas you addressed during your meeting. And I'm going to talk about closing ratio in a little bit, I think. But the other thing is if your closing ratio is lower than 50%, you've got some problems. My expectation is you should be able to go 65% and above closing ratio by doing this process. I've had some people that needed help. I looked at it, their closing ratio for the year was 43%. I've been working with them for the last 60 days, and we've gone from 43% to 55%. Just by listening, letting them know that you listen, and just helping them out, making sure they know you're on their side. So I want you to remember this is an opportunity for growth. We spend way too much time and money to make the phone ring to screw it up at the end. So I also want you to grade the phone call pass fail if you want. Some people that's a little harsh, but that's the way I always did it. What's your objective when the phone rings? Mine was always to set the appointment. If you set the appointment, you passed. If you didn't, you failed. Also find and share phone calls where they absolutely crushed it. You know, we can't always beat our employees into submission. We need to be like, damn, that was a great job you did right here. Let's listen to this. And then you just tell them like, man, I got nothing for you. There's nothing more I can say to that. Thanks for taking care of our mutual customer in such a great way. I really appreciate it. And if you have the opportunity, let other people in the company listen to that great phone call. Tell the tech, say, man, this is the kind of quality effort that this service advisor is putting out there every day to make sure your bays are full. He or she's doing this for everyone. Okay. Whew. All right. I need to drink real quick and then I'll keep going. So the other thing is I want you as shop owners to find and reward things that are going well. A long time ago, I worked for a company for a while that if there was a customer in your area and the supervisor got there first and you happened to walk up like 30 seconds later, they would sit there and glare at you the whole time you were with your customer, and you knew you were going to get ass chewing before it was over with because they got there first. And nobody ever came in and said, oh, you got here first, because I might have not gotten there before them one time and the other 48 times they didn't catch me, right? You don't want to catch your people doing bad and rub their nose in it. You want to catch your people doing great and reward it. So when we're talking about building a scorecard for success, I want you to have like 5 KPIs that your employees are held accountable for. And holding them accountable can mean a lot of different things, right? But make it something that the entire shop has a hand in. Don't make it a us versus them. We already have too much of the counter versus the shop and everything else. So I want you to come up with ones that you want to track and measure for your shop and make it fun. We spend a lot of time coming up with terrible pay plans, and in those pay plans, we make them individualized. And I can go on like a whole nother hour about pay plans and all the different ones that I've done, but it's time to reward greatness, right? So as shop owners, we're going to track anywhere from 25 to 60 to 100 KPIs. If you're with some other coaching companies out there, I try to keep it short and simple and look at 25 because those are the ones that really, really do the best. But as an owner, again, track 100 if you want, but if I had a shop right now, the 5 that I would share with my crew are average estimate, the labor hours per repair order, the percent of DVIs completed, productivity, and effective labor rate. Because I think that those are all things that people in the back and the front can affect on a daily basis and work together on. So if you set a goal and you're tracking these KPIs, I want you to share it with them daily. Don't be the owner that goes out 2 days before the end of the month and yells at everybody to get moving or we're not going to reach our goals. It's just never going to work. This is a daily event that you need to start with, like, oh, today's June 1st. And I also want to tell you guys, today's June 1st, which means in like 29, 30 days from now, we're going to be half over with this year. It's just insane. but I want you to share daily where we're at. Okay, we've completed 3% of our goal for the month. To the next day, we've completed 5% of our goal. Hey, we're doing great this week. We're on track, or we're behind, and we got to do this to catch up. Don't wait till the end. Make sure you want to reward them and let them know, I want you to get this bonus. I want you to do great, and I want you to achieve these goals because it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, so those were my 4 must-dos, and now I'm gonna give you 2 should-dos, or 2 things that I want you to start thinking about. I first heard about geofencing 4 or 5 years ago, and I talk about it here in just a second, I think. But the people that did it were from a radio station, because those are the only people that had enough money to buy into it in the beginning. Because in the beginning, it was like a $150,000 investment to get started with geofencing. And I didn't see the value in it because it wasn't explained well. So I'm going to try to explain it to you. So if you don't know what geofencing is, you should know when we're done with this. I work with some great companies that do geofencing, and we're really starting to see the value in it. So the definition of geofencing is the use of GPS or RFID technology to create a virtual geographic boundary, enabling software to trigger response when a mobile device enters or leaves a particular area. So I want you to think of a geofence as, if you walk into your house, your system in your house detects that your phone's there and it turns the light on. Or when you leave and walk out your front door, you're outside of the quote unquote fence and the lights go off. Okay. And so this evolution of advertising is the part that I didn't understand then that I understand now. So as we've evolved, in my mind, newspaper ads have become Google AdWords, radio ads have become video, and direct mail becomes geofencing. So if you spent a lot of money on direct mail in the past, I personally counsel all my clients not to do direct mail, mainly because of the acquisition costs. There's a bunch of other things that we can do cheaper, like AdWords, video, and geofencing, to drive the acquisition cost down. So direct mail becomes geofencing. Geofencing is the digital version of postcards. So how would you like to make 60 impressions in a household instead of 1 that gets seen and thrown in the trash? Also, instead of seeing a 4x6 postcard, they see your website, they see your videos, and this is your brand represented by you in real life, not just a flat postcard, right? And kind of where I've changed my stance on geofencing is because, again, some of the ways that it's been presented to me, it didn't make sense, because I'll explain it more here in just a minute, but people weren't doing AdWords. And as people come out of the stone age of advertising for their shops and move in and start doing more AdWords, then it's driven the price up. And so what I'm seeing in markets now is our AdWords budget's doubled in the last year to 18 months because of what happened during the pandemic and everything like that. So our AdWords budget has gone up and up and up, mainly because there's more people out there doing AdWords. And so I think geofencing is the future. What I've been seeing is people that never, or I just talked about that. People never did AdWords. So to me, right now, geofencing is the AdWords of 2015. And the reason why I say that is, think about 6-7 years ago, how many people did AdWords? People, understood it. I'm Google AdWords certified, but I would not do it every day because I don't do it every day. I hire professionals for that, and that's who I do it. The best thing about geofencing is I love it because it's trackable and we can target people anywhere. So say we build a geofence around somewhere, and just like in the picture earlier where it talks about your phone going in your house and out of your house, say we put a geofence around a housing area, that phone inside the fence gets tracked, and the minute that phone comes inside your fence of your business, it says, oh, this phone was targeted by a geofence and this phone showed up here. The tracking on geofencing is phenomenal. There's not much better on it, done well. So here's a picture of a geofence, and this is just like in a little area. This is like a housing community. So if you have an area near you that you wanted to geofence in, here's all the houses, here's the geofence, you put it around it. And then as those people are sitting in their, looking at their smart device, whatever, that's how these ads pop up. And, I'm not going to go into pixels and everything else like that, but the more data you can collect, the more targeting you can do and retargeting and everything else. And that's the other thing, is the retargeting from this. So when I first heard about geofencing, the way it was set to me was, hey, you have a shop here, you should geofence all of your competitors. That way, if you have somebody sitting in their shop and they're looking up something, your ad will go to them. And I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. And from my standpoint, I was like, because what's going to happen is if I put a fence around all my competitors, and then all my competitors put a fence around all my competitors, then we just drove the cost of the geofencing up. And compared to AdWords, it's not much. I mean, you're actually talking about dollars per thousands of targets instead of just one. So that's the main reason why I never liked it. But the more I've read about it, the more I've gotten back into it in the last 6 months, I've thought about, okay, so how do we increase this? How do we do better with it? So where and who? How do we do this? So what if we were able to obviously do neighborhoods, right? What if we were able to do hospitals? If you had a hospital near you, and I'm not really talking about the people that are in the hospital, I'm talking about the employees in the hospital, because you can set these geofences up for time periods. So say one person was in this geofence from 8 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday, then that would target an ad to them. And then once they get in there and they target it, and then they go home, if they're outside of another geofence, then they automatically are getting targeted and retargeted. So think about where your ideal customers are. If they're in hospitals, you can do that. For schools, you can do teachers. You do neighborhoods a lot. And then one thing is what about intersections? A lot of the times we're in places where people don't, you have 80,000 people drive by your shop every day, and 77,000 of them don't even know you're there. So what if we put up a geofence at the intersection on each end of that street, and as they drive through those intersections or those geofences, we target them, they look it up, and they're like, holy cow, I'm right down the street from this place that I didn't know existed. Okay. The other things is depending on what you're doing, car shows, things like that, you can do civic centers. If you had, I just drew a blank on the field, but if you wanted to geofence Mile High Stadium in Denver, you can do that. I'm sure there's probably 100 other geofences around that, but all those people that go to that game, if they were your targets, then they would get tagged and the ads would go with them. The other thing is if you did a civic center or something like that, it doesn't have to be specific. You can leave it up there year long. And so any event they have, people go into it, they'll get targeted. So you can put a geofence around anything. So here's the other thing that we've started doing. And this goes against what I said earlier, but everybody's fighting for technicians right now. And I'm a big believer, if you have great pay plans, if you have great benefits and you take care of your employees, they're not going anywhere. But typically there's always other people looking for work. So what I have done, or what I have seen here lately, is we're geofencing other places that we would like to pull employees from, and we're targeting them with technician ads, service advisor ads. I'll also say that you can get great service advisors off of Indeed right now, from people that were upset out of the hospitality industry looking for work. We're really, really hiring some great people in. So here's another one for me, guys. I had my shops in Oklahoma, and this is the last one. I think I'm still doing good on time.
Yeah, about 10 minutes, Chris.
Okay. So electric vehicles, I want everybody to be thinking about this. I really feel like we're on the edge of a precipice. A long time ago, I had some extra money and I bought and sold computer equipment, and I was buying like quad speed CD-ROM drives, then 8-speed, then 16-speed CD-ROM drives, and they were going obsolete in like 3 months or less. So we watched that with the computer industry. We were watching that with the same thing with phones. You know, I remember a brick phone, and then I remember a flip phone, and now I have smartphones. And so if you think that this is not going to happen with electric vehicles, you're kidding yourself. So it's time to start looking into training and development. What does your business look like in 5 years or less if 40% of the cars you work on are electric vehicles? So we have to get better at selling labor because there's fewer moving parts on electric vehicles. So instead of like a 50-50 split parts to labor, eventually we're going to be where 70% of what we're working on is labor and 25% is parts. And then just to go back to geofencing a little bit, you know, if you look into some of the scanning and the tools for some of the major electric players out there, they have geofences built around their sales centers, their charging stations, and their maintenance facilities. And if those cars aren't in that geofence, then you can't log into the car and do work on it. So, you know, my big point here is, guys, there are things coming at your business. And I'm not saying a shop in Oklahoma or Texas has got to super worry about this, but what are you going to do? And one thing that I will say is, don't look at the total amount of cars, of electric vehicles that are sold every year. Look at what the increase is year over year. If you go back and look, it's like 75%. So we're having like a 75% increase in electric vehicles year over year. And if that keeps going, it's just going to keep snowballing. Okay. So, whew, well, I feel like I've been racing. I hope I did a good job with that, everybody. So, guys, you can find me on YouTube at AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. You can find me on Facebook at AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. My website's autoshopcoaching.com. David put my email up earlier, Chris at autofixsos.com. And then my phone is, if you want to get a hold of me, this goes straight to my cell phone, 940-400-1008. So,
you know, Chris, really appreciate it. I think the call tracking, I think, is important, and listening to calls, I think, is something that people need to do way more often. I listen to my team's calls every single day. I have meetings with them once a week where they have to bring calls to us to listen to. We listen to them together. And then one of the things that really resonated with me when you said, and you share that call with the rest of the team, I then take those calls where they've done something really impressive and really great, and I share them with the rest of the company. And I say, hey, like, this is what people are doing. This is how people are representing our brand. This is how people are getting demos set. So I think all of those things are super important. If you guys didn't get a chance to get Chris's information, you can always email me. My information is in all the emails that we send out at the end of every single day. Doesn't look like we have any questions right now, but I'm sure there will be some that will come in, and I'll make sure to get them over to you. So I really do appreciate everybody coming today. You were a quiet bunch, but I can't blame you. It is a day after a 3-day weekend, so I'm sure everyone is a little bit tired. But that's great content, Chris. We'll get this out on Facebook. We'll get this out on YouTube, and we'll make sure that it gets in front of a lot more people than we're just here today. So with that, everyone, get back to your bays, get back to your service writing, get back to your listening to your phone calls, and everyone else have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.